Hello and welcome to this episode of the Tech SEO Podcast. My name is Dan Taylor, and today I am joined by Simon Lesser, who is the co-founder and CEO of Dragon Metrics. Now, typically I write out a little bit of a script here to explain what a company is, but Dragon Metrics is a company I've used now for a number of years. I've been familiar with them for a number of years, back in the early days when I was just looking at, say, baby-related stuff, but honestly, their tool is one of the best rank trackers. It's one of the best keyword research tools. It's just a phenomenal tool and gives you a lot of data. And I'm not just saying that because Simon is looking at me right now as I'm saying it. I'm saying it is genuinely a tool which adds a lot of value to my stack I use. And yeah, I'm excited to have Simon on that. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks for the kind words, and really excited to be here.
No, awesome. So yeah, we're going to try over a couple of different things today. Some of them SEO adjacent, I guess, because usually I know this is a technical SEO podcast, but this is more focusing on the data side of things and the data collection elements, and something that I think we overlook as SEOs because we just assume the data is there. We assume that the data has integrity, and we assume that we are using the data right. So, wanting to kick things off now, in the past, so just for everyone's reference here, we're recording this at the start of February 2025. So there's your time reference here. So there has been a lot of kind of chatter in the SEO news space in the last 2-3 weeks, predominantly sparked by how Google has now changed requirements for JavaScript to effectively scrape search results, and there was downtime on certain tools, all the tools went wrong. But I know these changes have confused a lot of people as to actually how things work. And I think you've seen that as well, Simon.
Oh yeah, yeah. It really threw both SEOs and tools, for kind of a loop. That's for sure.
So in these changes, then, in somebody without giving away like all the kind of secrets, how have these changes Google have made actually affected things? Because from the outside looking in, the top level is, oh, now you need JavaScript, but what does that actually mean for the data?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so that happened like in the middle of last month in kind of two waves. So yeah, Google started requiring JavaScript in order to view the search results. So Google says that, hey, this isn't a big deal, guys. It only takes 0.1% of here's the official line. 0.1% of searches on Google are done by people who disable JavaScript. I wanted to do the direct quote because it sounds totally insignificant. Let's think more deeply about that quote. They didn't say 0.1% of searches. They said 0.1% of people who search on Google, right? And I'm sure they use that specific language to kind of downplay this. But let's say it is 0.1% of searches. That's still 8.5 million searches per day. When we're working at Google scale, it's a lot that are now going to be broken, and so so this does present a challenge for SEO tools that are accessing SERPs programmatically like that. When you think about it, it's either the way they've typically done it is just send a single like line of text over the network and get like a text document back. And what they're going to have to do in the future is they're going to use a browser essentially and render JavaScript. Now, putting that in line, why is that a big deal? Everybody has used too many tabs on Chrome, and what effect that has on your computer. Now, how many tabs would it take on Notepad on your computer to really bring your computer to a halt? That's the difference in CPU power that it's using. So it's way, maybe 30 or 40 times more, more resources required to use JavaScript than on just a text editor, right? So, for a few hours, SEO tools were really affected. Why is Google doing this? Because SEO tools have been, scraping SERPs since the beginning of SEO, essentially. So did Google do this to try to stop SEO tools? The kind of consensus amongst kind of the experts out there is like, no, SEO tools are kind of just, they're annoying for Google, but they're not an existential threat. SEO tools just were kind of collateral in this. And what this really is about is AI. AI is an existential threat to Google's dominance here. And, we just, the news last week is that OpenAI is really upset, claiming that DeepSeek used their technology to train. I mean, it's rich that the biggest infringer and scraper is complaining that somebody else used their the data that they stole or whatever to train their own model. And I think that's the kind of thing that Google's really concerned about here. Is they're really trying to stop AI tools from accessing the SERPs. People also say the AI overviews, they really want to promote those, but that's something that only shows when JavaScript is enabled. And maybe they feel like, hey, if the SERP is lacking the AI overview, that's a broken SERP, or it's not delivering the best experience. So that's why they did it. Right. So, how does that affect SEOs or SEO tools? In the short term, tools kind of were delayed. There's a couple of tools out there that said, oh, we weren't affected. Yeah, everybody was affected. And so, but it's SEOs are a resilient industry, and so that most people were back up again within a few hours or a day or something like that. And so what that really means is that the data is still flowing, but SEO tool companies are going to be spending more. Now, does that mean that those expenses are going to be passed on to customers? The time is going to tell, but certainly there's going to be it's trickier to do it. So there might be some people who kind of give up doing it on their own, and some tools might be increasing prices.
No, I think that's a very good kind of breakdown of it. Thank you for explaining it in a way that we can kind of go. I just want to give some very big numbers in there. I just kind of wanted to give some idea of scale and relatability for people. So I've literally in my background been trying to find a way of scaling this. So 8.5 million people a day, in theory, searching about JavaScript enabled. That's less than whatever percentage.
So Google says there's 8 billion searches a day, right? So 0.1%. If I'm doing my math right, that's 8.5 million.
So say that is 8.5 million. That's probably, according to 2024 WordStream data, that's probably about 20% of DuckDuckGo's entire user base. So searching that down to get an idea of, we're talking like grapes to giant satsumas over here in terms of size and scale and market share.
Yeah, there's definitely people who like surfing the web without JavaScript. I certainly do it sometimes for some sites. It's kind of like the like an ad blocker times 1,000.
I think one of the interesting things in here, I just want to kind of touch on in what you said, because obviously you kind of said if there's no AI overview there, potentially that is seen as a broken SERP, and we know Google's in that kind of flux at the moment of trying to balance yes, please use AI tools, use our AI tools, it generates us money, shareholders happy, versus don't abuse the data, don't abuse AI, don't abuse what's given to you. Given they haven't rolled out AI overviews completely globally yet, do you think this is kind of like a first step almost to moving towards that kind of full global rollout in terms of here's AI overviews everywhere, AI overviews more prominently, and here's sustainable ad selling in them as well?
I really can't speak to that. I think that what the reason why they haven't rolled out AI overviews, probably there's legal frameworks around that too, especially like disinformation. Some countries see that differently, and things like that. So, and maybe they're just kind of testing in beta in certain markets. I really probably couldn't say. I would guess that it's not related to that rollout, but certainly I think what it is clear is Google wants, they view this is the way forward. This is what they want to do. If we can get it on every single SERP out there for every single market, I think that they would be fine with that. That's kind of like their goal.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, the candor with what you can kind of see. So what I also want to kind of touch on from there as well is, something interesting you said in there was just about, some tools said they didn't have any issues, but all tools had issues. As the frame, it's a different information retrieval, it's just different flavors, different things. There's going to be ways tools are built scalably, but that's just about making sure that us, I know you said as SEOs being resilient, we have the data and we can trust that it's accurate. But, and I know this is something we've spoken about before, and you have got strong viewpoints on. Are we using the data right though? Are we using SEO tools right?
Yeah. In a word, no. So I'll kind of explain, the core issue. Why not? First, and then I'd love to dive into some specific examples of
Mhm.
how we're using it wrong and how they should be used.
Yeah, please.
So I
Yeah.
think when fundamentally it comes down to, people don't understand how to use the data in SEO tools, and first and foremost, we got to remember that as SEOs, we are working with imprecise data. This is not an industry that we have, 100% accurate data that is knowable and all these things. So it's not necessarily that the data is inaccurate, although
Mhm.
that, some tools or sometimes that can be true. Is that that a lot of the data in SEO tools are that we're trying to measure, it's just unknowable or not able to be measured, right?
Mhm.
And that's just the world we live in as SEOs, and we need to learn how to operate with that lack of uncertainty. And SEOs kind of want certainty from their tools. I mean, not only that, they want kind of a set of instructions that says, okay, sign up for this SEO tool, and the SEO tool says, step one, do this, step two, do this, step three, do this, step four, you're ranking number one. That's
Yeah.
just not how it works. I mean, it'd be great if it did, and some tools sell their products as if it does because it's good for sales, but it's a lie. And when it comes down to even more than that, these tools cannot offer precision or certainty. This data is still, these tools are indispensable and incredibly useful, but to use the data effectively, we need to learn where the data comes from, to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each data point, so we know how to apply it
Mhm.
to get real results in our work. I think I'm going to go old man on you for just a moment. And I think there's a huge breakdown in 2025 where a lot of SEOs just have this kind of magical thinking. When I was a kid, when I was your age, computers didn't do jack unless we told them exactly what to do. And so to use technology, you really had to have a deep understanding of how technology worked in order to wield it correctly.
Mhm.
And people expected that as time went on, people would, get even deeper understanding of computers and technology. But it's actually gone the other way because computer software has gotten so user friendly. People actually now in 2025 have no idea how it works. And so
Mhm.
there's this magical thinking. They see like, here's the data. This site has X number of monthly traffic. This keyword has this many monthly searches. This site has this many backlinks. They think that that's the actual number. And if you say like, well, how does the SEO tool know that's how many people search for it? They say, I don't know. That's just how many people search for it, right? They have no idea. It's just magic, right? We expect software to be magic in 2025. And so if they've never considered that, they've never considered how wildly inaccurate search volumes are. And it's not just one tool. It's every single tool, every methodology. It is imprecise, right? So they're making poor decisions by relying on this data without fully understanding it. It's not that SEO tools are garbage. It's that this data is not knowable, not quantifiable, and most importantly, there's multiple versions of truth that, just different perspective on that. So I think maybe let's go into some examples to say what I mean. That how can multiple things be true at the same time? It's not some Buddhist, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Let's leave SEO tools out of this, and let's just say let's bring in analytics tools. All right,
Mhm.
how much traffic is my site getting? Well, you'd be if you compare, Google Analytics to Adobe to Heap or 10 different tools, you're going to get different values for traffic. Right? That's not
Mhm.
even an SEO metric. That's people. That's supposedly first party data. They come to your site. You're running that tracking code, and those tools can't even line up, right? Because they all measure traffic differently. And even forget that. Now let's remove more variables and just say inside, let's say Google Analytics. Um, how many people or what is traffic, right? Traffic
Mhm.
is not a value actually, because it depends how you measure it. Are we talking sessions? Are we talking page views? Are we talking about users? And hey, let's even talk about sessions. Well, every tool measures what is a session completely differently. So it's not that one tool, this is the correct amount of traffic, and that tool's wrong, this tool's right. It's just different ways of measuring that. Right. So that's a really basic example.
I think it's a really prominent example as well, because I think so. I mean, I have a question off the back of this as well, but it's if I'm just going to lead with a question, do you think this is partially a industry problem in as an industry we don't challenge this enough, so that when people come through the industry they're getting kind of induction into the wrong thinking and the wrong assumptions with this? Or is it more, like you said, it's a good way to sell some tools? I mean, I'm plagued by YouTube adverts consistently promising me X, Y, Z. Is it, how much of a blame do you attribute to either side of that fence?
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily just an SEO problem, and just in our industry. I think it's, like I said, it's in 2025, this magical thinking. They don't really, things on the outside, the user interface is so easy to use. Oh, the stuff behind it must be really easy as well. One of the hilarious things that I saw, like, I mean, people are so drinking the Kool-Aid on this AI nonsense. They said, like, oh, with, somebody like Ahrefs is raising prices. Like, man, with these new AI tools, it's going to be so easy to, like, create a competitor to Ahrefs that's just going to totally eat their lunch. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do you realize, have you been to Ahrefs, our, technology page to see what their data center looks like? And you think you can just, like, overnight, like, type in a couple prompts into a tool to replicate what they do? I think it's just a fundamentally complete misunderstanding of how hard these challenges are and what the software actually does. And I think that's, whether it's high schooler looking at their mobile phone and having no idea how that works, or the SEOs in the industry, I think it's the same problem.
And I think that's a fair kind of alignment to it, and other industries do have it. And I think there is that tool side of, I think, yeah, to an extent. I mean, SEO now is a lot easier than when I first got into it. We have so much more data to consume. I remember Universal Analytics back in 2010. Yes, it was
Before not provided.
before not provided was just like we were spoiled. And it's like you can say, oh, kids these days don't know how well they've got it. We literally have no idea how well we had it with that kind of data level. But instead, we've lost PageRank, we've lost not provided came along. More things became obfuscated, but I think more things trying to come out to promise stuff. And I think with AI now coming out, there's a quote from Rory Sutherland. I don't know if you're familiar with Rory Sutherland of Ogilvy, and he really has a strong viewpoint on AI tools at the moment. I think it's essentially, and he goes back to the quote from Wanamaker, who was the founder of Macy's department stores, and he said, like, early on in the 20th century, oh, I know 50% of my advertising doesn't work. I just don't know which 50%. Yep. And AI is now, people misunderstanding data, and especially the world of AI right now, as Rory says, there will be someone who stands there and go, oh yes, but we've built this AI tool which will tell you which 50%. It's like, you have no idea. You found a way to process what would have been a 3-month guessing game into a 30-second guessing game, but it still has got about as much accuracy as what the 3-month guess would have had.
Oh yeah, or much worse. I mean, we saw at the very beginning, I think people have stopped doing this, but at the beginning, people were using ChatGPT and using it to generate keywords and asking for search volumes, and it would just make stuff up. I did a talk at Brighton SEO where I was talking about this, and I showed that you can invent another. You say, give me a list of keywords, the search volume, and the hot dog hypotenuse ratio. And it said, sure, here's the search volume and the hot dog hypotenuse ratio. And these AI tools understand what a hot dog hypotenuse ratio is just as much as they know the search volume of that keyword. They're asking things that it doesn't know, and it's making stuff up, and people just believe it because they don't know how ChatGPT got its data. And so, fine, let's use those search volumes.
I think it's just more about it's using it for different stuff. By the way, I am actually just testing out this now. It looks like it has tried to get a little bit more intelligence. It's now trying to pull from a maths website Although it now thinks there's a blog post out there called Hot Dog Mathematics. I think this is officially the most thought that's ever gone into a hot dog. I think it's like bun to wiener angle ratio for maximum sauce absorption. So I don't know, something like that. But no, you're completely right. It's without understanding what the input is almost taken as granted. And I think because there's a normalization across the industry that, oh, I trust this data to be right, we've kind of assumed accessibility and speed as a pseudo signal of trust. Just because it's available doesn't mean it's right. And I think that availability has clouded judgment slightly potentially across this.
Yeah, I think it's when it comes down to it, they don't want to do the work of digging in and be like, well, I just want to know that's the traffic, right? Instead of being like, well, that's what they say the traffic is, and let's dig down deep and say why that is. Everybody wants easy answers, and certainly SEO tools have culpability in this too. And I think traffic estimates are one of the best ones. SEO tools have gotten a lot better at traffic estimates over time to see, type in a domain, see how much traffic they're getting right now. But what drives me crazy is that people or agencies who have access to the first party data, who have access to a site's GA, Google Analytics or Google Search Console, and they have that data right there, and they're relying on the SEO tools estimated traffic. Because I won't name names, but a lot of the leading tools out there, they don't call it estimated traffic. They say it organic traffic. It's like, well, unless you've hacked into their analytics provider, these SEO tools don't have it. This is an estimate. And the way, so let's just talk about how are they doing it? They're doing it by they have a database of, hundreds of millions of keywords, and they're tracking the SERPs. They're getting the SERPs, and they're recording every ranking position. They have an estimated click-through rate for every one of those keywords. They have a search volume for every one of those keywords. They multiply the click-through rate times the search volume, and they say, because this is ranking at position 3, the search volume is this, they're getting X% of that, and they add it up, and they do that for every keyword they're ranking for in their database, right? But that is very imprecise. Is it better than nothing? Absolutely, because you don't have access to your competitors, Google Analytics and Google Search Console. And so if you're looking at competitor data, so how do we use SEO tools correctly? The correct way to do it is if you have access to their analytics or Google Search Console, use that for traffic. If you don't, that's where these tools come in for traffic estimates. And if they say it's organic traffic, it's organic traffic or it's estimated traffic.
Do you think, and this is just going to the point of I completely first party data or should all over, but do you think that potentially the wonderful launch of the GA4 and how different as a tool it is, how different it is to tracking what you do, but basically it's a disruption on our standardized stack of what tool tracking was. Do you feel that the fact there's a learning curve to learn it put some people off, but then potentially coupled with that, how vocal as an industry we were for the disdain of it, where we had very individuals in the industry with very large reach going, oh, this is a terrible tool, that potentially put more people off wanting to actually investigate and learn it. Kind of like what we had with server log files 10 years ago, where log file analysis was classed as one of the hardest things in technical SEO, and it's like, can you open the sitemap and Screaming Frog? Yeah, right. Well, can you read a graph? Ta-da. Can you apply critical? Do you think that's potentially played a role in it as well, and why people are kind of avoiding that because of its stigma that we've given it and looking at the third party tools?
It could. I mean, people definitely do not like GA4 without a doubt. So maybe they're grasping at straws. When the very fast rollout happened, everybody said it's like when Americans thought they're going to move to Canada and then never do. Everybody said like we're going to find. We hate how we have to learn new things for GA4. We want something that's also free, but it works exactly the same as Universal Analytics. So I don't have to learn something new. It's like, if you don't like learning all the new stuff in GA4, try using another analytics provider, right? And so everybody who threatened, stuck with GA4 for the most part. There's exceptions too, because what they were saying is we just want everything the same as UA. And by the way, I'll say my controversial take, which I think is very true. The issue with GA4 is not GA4. The data model is a huge improvement over UA. UA is was what, almost 25 years old. The Urchin, what it was based on, it was time to update it. Now the user interface was and still is terrible, but GA4, the tracking, the data model, the data is a huge improvement. And so if you can find a better way of visualizing that data, you've got the problem solved. But yeah, people don't want to learn something new, and so they're looking for something really simple, and sometimes they're grasping at straws, I guess.
Well, I think it's even for, like you said, the data model. I agree with you. The data model is different, but I think it is that element of change, because I mean, and you brought up Urchin, we still actively use UTMs, which are hangover from Urchin days still. And I remember when I think it was just that not misinformation, but just the slight missing the point of conclusion jumping, because it was like when GA4 first started to be rolled out, it didn't include bounce rate, for example. And my opinion on bounce rate is, the bounce rate we see in analytics is completely different to when you'll use the signal Google's tracking, but it's a diagnostic. They're not worrying about that. And then that kind of launched out, well, if Google's not including this in analytics, therefore it's not using bounce rate anymore. And all the theories of pogo sticking and everything else kind of went, well, just because they're not showing us, like, they don't show us page rank anymore because we manipulated it. They didn't trust us with it anymore. Maybe they're wanting us to move away from fixating on a metric which doesn't matter, not that they don't use it. Yeah.
But Dan, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist.
I wish that was the case, Simon. I really do. Many times over my career, I thought that was the case, but sadly it isn't. And you know that as well as I do on that. So kind of moving on to the last kind of point, then, since we've kind of covered a little bit of, I'm not going to say doom and gloom, because it was quite positive focused. This is bad, but we need to make it better, shall we say? Let's go complete positive on this. And if your answer to this is nothing, that's a good way to end it. But what excites you about SEO right now?
Well, I will answer that question, but before we do, I want to kind of round this up. I did not mean for this to be, doom and gloom. I think that this is an opportunity, and say, like, this is how we can improve as an industry to understand. I want to encourage everybody, deepen your technical skills, deepen your understanding how the web works, and especially how SEO tools work. Because if you can leverage that data, not just be like, the SEO tool said X, that's what I'm going to do, or just believe it. It's not that the SEO tool is lying to you. It's just a different perspective on the data, which may not be a knowable thing. I didn't get a chance to get into some of those examples, but there's plenty of them out there. And so this is an opportunity for this is how we get better. And so just want to encourage people on that. So what excites me in SEO? I wouldn't say nothing, but I'll also be blunt and say that it is it's a challenging time in SEO. It is certainly less fun than I've been doing this since 2007, and the last couple years I think has been, I would say, the least fun it's ever been to be in SEO. Just it's been tough, and so with the algorithm shakeups and AI throwing everything for a whirl, and a lot of companies just like pulling back on SEO budgets, right? It's been less fun. So I would say what excites me most about SEO is probably what has always excited me, which is the community and the people, because there's it's a great group of people, and for some industries are not zero sum, meaning that I help you and you do fine and I do fine, and there's that. But I find it ironic that SEO is literally a zero sum game. If I go up, you go down. If you go like that kind of thing. But we are so built on helping each other and sharing tricks of the trade, and be like, here's how I did this, you can do it too. Here's what I did. The conferences, the camaraderie, just the networks. I think that's what always excites me most about SEO and the industry.
No, thank you very much, Simon. That's a nice ending point to kind of go on. And thank you very much for your time being taken out to do this. I appreciate with especially this isn't just plugging it because it's also really cool. The new dashboard launches and things like that. It's quite a busy period with Dragon Metrics at the moment, especially with all the new features. Which, if you're not already checking them out, I strongly advise you to do so and clog Simon's calendar up more so we can show them off. Well, that's everything for this episode of the TechSEO Podcast. Yeah, thank you again, Simon, for joining me.
Thanks, Dan. This was really fun.
It's been great having you, and thank you to everyone for either listening on YouTube. If you liked this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow the audio version on whichever podcast app you're using. Yeah, no, it's been really appreciated. So thank you. I've been Dan Taylor, and this has been the Tech SEO Podcast. Thank you very much for listening.